Welcome and thanks for joining us today on a Sales Leadership Webinar Series Part 1. Today's topic is how to be a real success. Let's see what is today's agenda is all about. It's about a new topic, how to be a real success. He explains us about three different elements of success we require to succeed in life and how to build on strength and minimize weakness. So now I'll go ahead and let Mr. Green take over from here to start the webinar. Over to you, Mr. Israel.
Thank you. Wow, this time is just flying by. It is hard to believe it is week 3 already. As always, thank you for that warm welcome, Kirti. I appreciate it. To everyone on the call, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I want to say welcome, 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 and thank you for joining us on our third week of this 4-week series. As Kirti mentioned, my name is Israel Green. I'm a certified speaker, teacher, and coach with the John Maxwell team. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar with who he is or who our team is, we are one of the largest leadership organizations in the world. John Maxwell himself has been named as the leadership guru. He's been dubbed as the #1 leadership expert by organizations such as the American Management Association and Business Insider. We have roughly 16,000 members spanning across 140 countries. And collectively, I am proud to say that he and I have written 112 books on leadership and personal growth. 112. Yep, it's pretty amazing. He has written 111 and I've written 1. You might say that I've got a little bit of catching up to do, but he's got a few years on me. Now, for those of you that joined us in the past 2 weeks, as you know, I like to kick off every session with 2 questions. But before I do, I want to do a quick summary of what we covered last week and discuss what this topic is all about as well. So over the past 2 weeks, we shared content from John Maxwell's leadership program, Everyone Communicates, but Few Connect. Now, during the first week, we spoke about the principles that were the foundation of not just being an effective communicator, but that were vital to the foundation of connecting. And at a very high level, we covered connecting increases your influence in every situation, connecting being all about others, and how connecting always requires energy. We also discussed strategies and practices that helped cement these principles, such as the practice of finding common ground, and how connectors inspire people, and the fact that connectors live what they communicate. This week, we're going to be moving to another John Maxwell program, as Kirti mentioned, and this is titled, How to Be a Real Success. Now, back to those 2 questions. For those of you that are new here, when I do these trainings, either live or web-based, I like to kick off the call or the session by always asking 2 very basic questions. Number 1 is, who wants results? Which, if we were all in a room together, I hope everyone would raise their hands and say that you do, because that's what leadership is all about. And number 2 is, what is your intention during the 50 minutes we're going to be on this call together? Now, I'm sure that when I asked the first one, if we were all in the room together, like I said, everyone would raise their hands. But for the second one, it requires a little bit more thought. And really what I want you to do is be intentional in your time that you're on this call. And with regard to the second question of what is your intention, I want to challenge you to be very, very clear on that answer. Write it down and take action on it. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. One of the biggest things that distinguishes leaders from the rest of the pack, and the major difference between those that crush it and those that don't, is that the ones that crush it are action takers. That's the secret. It's very basic. They are really powerful action takers. Even if it's an imperfect action, they are the ones that get farther than the ones that take no action at all. So I want you to think about those moments and opportunities where you can take this content, whether you're here for this week and or next week as well, but how you can take this content and apply it and apply these principles to produce results for you. All righty. So getting started. Olympic athlete Earl Wilson once said, success is simply just a matter of luck. Just ask any failure. Now, before we jump in here, I do have one more question for you, and that's who wants to be successful? Now, this session is going to require a little bit of participation. So if you want to be successful, let me see you type success in the chat box. Everyone that wants to be successful, let me see you type success in the chat box right now. All right, we got some rolling in. Aries, David, success, success. All right, that's what we like to see. Robert, Mita, Kevin, Brian, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. So the big piece here is if you want to be successful, you got to know what success is. So I'm going to be asking IQ questions periodically through here, and who wants to be a success is one of those IQ questions. Now, everybody in the audience says that they want to be a success, but here's the real question. What is success? What is success? If we were all in the room together and I were to walk throughout this audience and ask, do you want to be successful? Everyone would raise their hand and have the same answer. But if I were to ask you to define success, I promise you that we would have 10 to 20 different answers. So I would like to share with you what I think success is. We're going to be spending time on it. We all need to be aligned and on the definition and be operating at that same level. So first, I want to talk a little bit about what you can expect from today's workshop. There are 3 components to this workshop, and it's called How to Be a Real Success for a Reason. The first is relationships. You're going to be able to leave here today fully understanding relational rules. You're going to learn how to better relate to others and how to be more effective in adding value to help others reach their potential. The second one, as it relates to equipping, you will learn the importance of equipping and how to better recognize and build on the leadership potential in those around you so that you can carry out your vision. And we're going to cover a couple of the laws of teamwork that will help you do so. And then with attitude, we're going to cover tips on how to improve one's attitude through daily practices, the impact of your attitude on your team, and how to adopt an attitude that will make any challenge much easier. And then last but not least, we're going to cover leadership. So that's going to be covered next week. But really what I want to show here is how to raise your leadership lid. And we're going to cover what other successful leaders do to get to the top and how they stay there. And as a result, how you can successfully help to lead others around you. And we'll focus on a few of the laws from one of my other courses, which is the 21 laws of irrefutable laws of leadership. Now, for each of these components, relationships, equipping, attitude, and leadership, we have self-evaluation forms included in your workbooks, which if you check in your chat box, there should be one in there for you to download. I highly, highly recommend that you do 2 things here. One is you do the evaluation yourself, and then 2 is you give the evaluation to your team to do on behalf of you and allow them to score you secretly. Because what you're going to find is you're going to uncover some blind spots when you do this. And this is going to give you a really good starting point for you to begin implementing some of these changes and strategies that we're going to be talking about today. Now, this is in your notes. Success is number 1, knowing what your purpose is in life. It's just that simple. Success is knowing what you should be doing in life. And I run into people all the time, and they don't know what their purpose is in life. Let me ask you this. What would it profit you if you worked all of your life, you worked hard climbing the ladder of success, only to find out that when you got to the top of that ladder, it was leaning up against the wrong building? And this happens far too often. People working hard but never knowing what their purpose is, and as a result, it's like a good friend of mine always says, we spend 100% of our time on 10% of who we are. Think about that for a moment. We spend 100% of our time on 10% of who we are. Success is more than just knowing my purpose in life. I always say that when you find your why, you'll find your way. Second, success is growth. Growing to my maximum potential. Growth is happiness. People that grow are some of the most fulfilled and happiest ones on earth. You see, your potential is what God or the world has given to you, and what you do with it is your gift back to the world. So success is knowing my purpose in life and growing to my maximum potential. And finally, success is sowing. It's sowing seeds that benefit others. In other words, I believe it's impossible for you or for me to be successful in life without sowing seeds into the lives of other people. Helping other people add value to their lives, I've observed and discovered that successful people have to be able to do 4 things well. And that's the reason this workshop is called How to Be a Real Success. It's based on relationships, equipping, attitude, and leadership. So when we cover today is how to be a real success, I want you to think of it as a hook, so to speak, to remember what those components are: relationships, equipping, attitude, and leadership. Now, what I've discovered is this: successful people get along with people. It's plain and simple. The best way to say it is people won't go along with you until they can get along with you. Now, think about it. Don't we all know somebody that it's hard to get along with? A little quick survey here. How many of you know at least one person that's difficult to get along with? If you know one person, just say me. One person that's difficult to get along with that you have to interact with. We got several me's rolling in. Now, how many of you are on the call with that person and that person is your boss? Now, keep in mind, the first question is a relationship question. The second question is an IQ question. So here he says that it's her that's hard to get along with. So in your notes, when asked about one single characteristic that's needed by those in leadership positions, most chief executives at major companies replied, the ability to work with people. Teddy Roosevelt said the most single important ingredient to the formula of success is knowing how to get along with people. In actual studies of leadership in American business, it's been proven that the average executive spends 3/4 of his or her time his or her working day dealing with people. And that's why Stanford research has told us that success is 87% people knowledge and 13% product knowledge. 87% people knowledge and 13% product knowledge. Think about this for a moment. 87% of your success and my success is going to be in our ability to get along with people. How much time do we spend when we go into an organization? Do they spend teaching us about the product? It's like they puke the product all over us, so to speak. And then how much time do we spend equipping and training our people in that area of the product? How much time do we spend training and equipping our employees in the areas of dealing with people? 87% of your success is going to be people knowledge, 13% product knowledge. Most people can trace their success and failures to the relationships that they have in their lives. In my one-on-one coaching, one of the things that I do is the vast majority will look at their success and failure and say that it was attached to a relationship that they had in their life. Now, in relationships, there are 4 types of people that you're going to encounter. And these are some of the people that add to our lives. When we think about it, they just add value. The second is you're going to have people that subtract from our lives. These are the ones that just take a little bit out of us every time we see them. It's like you walk into a room and they just suck all the oxygen out of that room. And these are the ones that you walk in and it's like you're in 10 feet and it's like they're a vampire. They suck all the life out of you. And then you're going to have some people that actually subtract. You have those that multiply our lives. And then more than anything, you're going to have people that add value to you and they just absolutely multiply. And then you have those that divide. Since relationships are so important to our being successful, it's important to know who you surround yourself with. There is a statistic that says we are the average of the 5 people that we surround ourselves with. The average of the 5 people that we surround ourselves with. So what I would like to share with you today are relationship rules. And there's normally 10 relationship rules, but we're only going to cover 7 for the sake of time. So the very first one is love and accept yourself. Love and accept yourself, because you see, this is the fact that only relationships in your life that is continual and thereby most important is with yourself. And the first person that you need to learn to get along with is you. Because I know people that have never been able to get along with themselves, and guess what? And this is the God's honest truth. If you can't get along with yourself, you're not going to be able to get along with anyone else. And there's a common thread for people who have relationship issues and with people that struggle with spending time with themselves. And I can guarantee they have a difficult time accepting and loving themselves. The next one is putting energy into being likable. It takes energy to be likable. It takes energy to smile and stay in the moment. It takes energy to add value to people. It takes energy to look at people and get on their ground and ask questions that will interest them and stay where they are. This simply put is, for lack of a better word, charisma. People who have charisma have the ability to take that moment and put the other person ahead of themselves. So when they talk to the other person, they talk to them about their interests, their hobbies, things that they like to do. In other words, when you want to be likable, having charisma and putting others first is the best thing to do. Now, when I say putting energy into being likable, some of you may be thinking, now that's going to take a lot of energy for Pete or Susie or whomever. And some of you might say, I'm just not a people person, so I struggle with that. And yes, some people are very natural at this. It's a gift for some, but you are able to do this. It will keep you from being a success if you do not try. So what I want you to do is put energy into being likable. This is an area that even I have to work on. I'm a huge introvert. So it takes a lot of effort for me to put myself out there and expose myself and really step out of my comfort zone. But when you do that, it's there that you're going to recognize the most growth. The greatest growth comes when you're out of your comfort zone. And that's when you get the greatest return on your efforts and your investment. An example of this is smiling. For me, I absolutely hate to smile. And it's not because I'm an unhappy person, but because I was cursed. I say that I was cursed. I hate smiling because when I do, my cheeks look like I'm storing nuts for the winter. And you have absolutely no idea what it's like to be walking down the street and have people constantly asking you, what are you eating on? It's rough. Relationship rule number 3, remember their name. This sounds so basic. Now, some of you may be thinking, okay, that's not my gift. I can't remember anything. Well, it's not mine either. And the reason that it's difficult to remember a name is because they tell you a name and then that person is gone. And as a result, we weren't able to hold that face with the name. So you don't have that association with it. I knew a CEO of a telecom company, and we dubbed this guy King Midas. It seemed like everything he touched just turned to gold. And he was a true definition of a real success. And he had this thing that he would do for every employee that started at the company. He would put their photo up beside their name on the wall in his office. And until he could recognize you in an airport and call you by name, he would not take your name off of that wall. And he was able to do this until we got to roughly about, I want to say 1,300 employees. And it was pretty amazing to watch him do this. He would come into the office and toss a football over to you and say, "Hey, Israel, how you doing today? What questions do you have for me?" And it was like it was a gift, but the reality is it wasn't a gift. He just simply put effort and energy into it. And he would do this because he knew and he understood that when you can remember someone's name, it shows them that they were important to you. So here's a few tricks to help you remember someone's name. Number 1, when you meet the person, meet and repeat their name. If they say, "Hey, my name is Charlie," relay it back to them. "Hey, Charlie, nice to meet you. My name is Israel." The second thing is to create a memorable link. The brain works best when you can link 2 factors together. So you might want to start with something or someone that's famous. A good example with Charlie would be Charlie Babbitt. He's a character from a movie. So I would associate that individual with Charlie Babbitt. And then lock in on that. So as an example, if you meet a Joe, you might think Joe versus a volcano. Then you can always tie that to something physical about that person. So if you were meeting me, you might think of Israel and associate that with the country. And then when you think back a characteristic as you're scrolling through your memory Rolodex, you're going to think about my cheeks. Israel, like the country with the big chipmunk cheeks. Give it a try today. If you meet anyone, as you're meeting people, try these few tips and see how they work for you. Now, obviously, this isn't foolproof, but if you combine these techniques with the desire and want to remember their names, it's going to increase the likelihood that you will. Number 4 is focus on their interest. It's absolutely amazing what happens when you focus on the interest of someone else. Putting yourself in their shoes, understanding what they like and appreciate. Now, every person, I don't care who you are, every single person has a key to their life. Every single person. You have to discover that key. There's an exercise that I do when I do trainings for smaller groups. And this is one of the most valuable exercises that I have in my arsenal as a leader. I take a stack of roughly 50 cards, and on these cards are words, and they're interest words. And I basically sit down, and the interest words are things like family, values, learning, money, time off. And what we do is we give a person the stack of cards, and we ask them to narrow it down to the 6 most important cards that they find in that stack. The 6 most important cards to them. And then we go and drill down even further, and we ask them to narrow down to the final 3 and then the final 2. Out of the 50 cards, I make them choose the 2 most important things that they value the most. Now, as a leader, I'm going to tell you why this is so valuable. Think about it. If you have a team of 10 people and you have them go through that exercise and then end up with the 2 most important values on that table as a leader, you're going to be able to understand what the key is to their life and how you can inspire and motivate them. You're going to begin to understand what they love, what they care for, what they value, what they consider important in their life, what is a priority in their life. That's the exercise, and the relationship rule is very, very simple. Focus on their interest. Next is relationship rule number 5. Request help from other people. Now, most people will hate asking people for help, but I can tell you this is a great conflict resolution scenario that you can do. Asking people for help. Think about it for a moment. When you stop and ask someone for directions, they are almost stop traffic to give you directions and then repeat it 2 or 3 times back to you. And the reason they're doing it is because they know that they know something that you don't know. They're willing to interrupt their life to give you directions. It's very simple. When you stop and ask them for directions, they know that you need something from them, and all of a sudden that creates a value for them. I'm adding value at that point whenever you ask me for help. And this is important. This is what I want to encourage. Ask people for help. If you have someone that you have a relationship issue with, someone that you really need to get along with, especially on a team, if I sit down with them and say, hey, you know what, I need your help. You're pretty sharp in this area. You're really good at this. You're better at it than I am. Would you mind kind of walking me through this? What would you do in that situation if someone asked you that? I guarantee all of a sudden your dynamic is going to change. I've found that if I ask them to help me, I become vulnerable to them, and especially if they give me some advice that I can use and then give them credit for 2 or 3 days later. That's the key to building relationships. Relationship rule number 6 is add value to people. There are 3 easy ways to add value to people. One is truly value the person. It's that simple. We will not continue to add value to others that we truly don't value. And if we don't value people, we will begin to take advantage of them, manipulate them, ignore them. We'll begin it to be a little bit of a disgust with them. I got to keep working with them. If we value them, it takes our communication with them up a whole nother level. Second thing on the list is make yourself more valuable. As a leader, we have to continue to get better. The leader has to stay in front, and the only way to do that is continue to stay sharp. If you don't keep learning and staying ahead of the group, then the group is going to pass you up. So the only way to continue is to keep learning, keep adding to your resources, and keep sharing that knowledge. Third is we add value to others when we know and we can relate to what they know. And this goes back to the idea of knowing the keys to the people's lives. The key is to listen, ask questions, and listen. The most successful leaders are very good listeners. And the last one on the list, and it's not on the diagram here, but the 101% principle. And I love this one. This is why I included it. You might be thinking, what is the 101% principle? It's in your notes, but the 101% principle says to find the 1% that you agree on with someone and give that your 100% effort. Think about that for a moment. Find the 1% of the things that you agree on and you give 100% of your effort to that thing. Now, normally we'll do just the opposite. Don't you know people that they find that 1% that they disagree on and they just give 100% against it? And this is why there's so much conflict out there. They will drill down on that and fuss and fight on that 1%. Now, in relationship rules, we all have things that we disagree on with others. It's going to be a given. But we have to try to find that 1%, that common ground, and focus on it. The people that can't relate to others have just never been able to find common ground. Find the thing you agree on and the thing you enjoy and the thing that you both are committed to and stay there. And then what you're going to find is that ground is going to expand and that relationship is going to improve. So next on the list is equipping. The second key to success is equipping. And I've discovered that people that are successful have the ability to take and equip and train other people. In fact, in your notes, great leaders grow their vision from me to we. Great leaders understand that they need to take the vision that they have, that they need to be able to equip and train others to carry it out. And this is the only way they can ever compound their vision. Equipment is not an easy task at all. Because we're specialists, we think that we can do it quicker and better all by ourselves. So talking about equipping for a moment and vision, most organizations have trouble carrying out their vision simply because they do not equip their employees. I want to do a quick poll question here. and figure out who on this call, how many of you can cite the vision of your company verbatim? How many of you can cite the vision of your company verbatim? And we'll give it about 30 seconds here. Go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, polls closing. And we are closing the poll. So 61% people said yes, that they can recite the vision. 39% said that they cannot recite the vision of their company. And this is simply because of the fact that when you don't equip people, they're not aligned with that vision of the company or the mission of the company. So reason number one that we don't equip. Reason number one is it's hard work. Equipping people is not easy. And I've discovered when you equip people, they don't stay in place. They move, they don't always stay where we put them. And this is part of managing and having teams. So we get frustrated because we're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to put all this energy into equipping this person, bringing this person up, training this person, and then they're going to jump ship and move on me. Guys, that's part of management. That's part of leadership. Don't take a look at it as hard work on your part. Take a look at it as a feather in your cap when they do prepare to jump ship, because you've equipped them and prepared them to be able to rise above the ranks. Number two is we underestimate people. One of the reasons that we fail to equip people is because we truly underestimate what they can do. And whenever I find somebody that doesn't spend time training, developing, and working with others, the biggest reason that they don't is almost always an underestimation of what that individual can do. And when you underestimate what people can do, how they can grow and how they can develop and what they can become, I can promise you this, you will not spend any time investing or equipping them. Third is we enjoy doing the task ourselves. Some of the things that we like, we enjoy that piece of our job. So whenever we do that, we say, hey, you know what? I want to do this myself and I can do it better than anyone else. And it's just something that we enjoy. A lot of times managers will continue to do certain things and they still limit themselves as a result of that. There are going to be things in your job that you have to give up that you really enjoy. It's inevitable. And what this is going to allow you to do, it's going to allow you to do the things that you should be doing that are going to help move your organization forward. You have to make that transition from the enjoyment page to the priority page. And this is going to be a major breakthrough whenever you're able to do this. The fourth thing is we receive ego strength from being needed. There is something about the ego fulfillment when we hear someone say, you know what, I need you. Or when someone says, oh my goodness, I couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. And the reality is it's simply not true. They would have found a way to get it done without you. If you don't believe me, take a sabbatical for 3 months and see if that company stops. The reality is it's going to continue to go. Another reason we fail to equip others is because we're in the habit of doing everything. And a lot of times we fail to equip others because it's just a habit and we just constantly are doing it. We're not thinking other than, you know, I need to get it done. Let me just do it. The sixth reason is control. I've discovered that people that are control individuals, or AKA control freaks, people that have the last say in everything, they're usually the ones that are highly insecure. The more that a person has to be in control, the more insecure they are. If you're the type of person where you have difficulty equipping people and training people and developing people because you can't let things go, you have to really work on that. It reminds me of one of the leadership laws that I teach and coach on, and it's the law of empowerment. And it states that secure people give power away. Insecure people control. They hold on to it, they protect it, they defend it, they put a fence around it, they memorialize it. Don't be afraid to give up that control. Another reason is that we don't notice that leadership potential in those around us. And this goes back to the second one. It's because we underestimate people and what they can do. People will only rise to the standard that you create for them. If you put a low standard on someone, they're going to meet that standard. So you have to add value to people and raise that expectation of them. So when you're thinking of equipping, I want you to think of what I call the teamwork laws. The teamwork law states, the teamwork makes the dream work. If you really want your dream to work, you have to get your team to work. If you don't have a team that works well together, what you're going to find is that the dream is going to quickly turn into a nightmare. And if you have a dream and not a team, well, that's the gap. So a couple of laws that are going to help you understand the value of that is number one, the law of significance. Now, the law of significance states that greatness, one is too small of a number to achieve greatness. You're going to run across people all the time that will have you believe that they're a self-made man, that they want this congratulations, and honestly, it's not owed. The reality is that those things that they do, they're significant because they included others. It's almost impossible to name one significant event in history that was accomplished by just one person and without the help of anyone else. If you were to try, what you would quickly realize, if you start thinking about this, be it Martin Luther King, Cesar Chavez, John F. Kennedy, Joan of Arc, you're going to find that they all had a team around them. One simply cannot multiply. You have to have a group, you have to have a team. And what I've discovered is if you want to have a great idea, you have to have several good ideas. And when you bring other people in, you begin to share the good idea with others, and all of a sudden, you get 5 or 6 great ideas, and the synergies start to flowing from that. That's the value of teamwork. That's the value of bringing people together as a team. When I deliver these trainings and working sessions regarding teamwork, the big question I get always is, you know what, how do I know if I have a good team? And you might be thinking about the same thing. Obviously, it comes in the results, but if you're not there yet, you're not seeing the results, how do you know if you have a good team? Well, one way, and it's an absolute fact, if you have a good team, you're going to know because when you throw an idea at them, a good idea, they're going to give you a better idea back. If you have a good team, then you suggest something, they're going to suggest something at a higher level. The fact of the matter is 100% an absolute fact. People, the right people, will always make me or you better. One of us is not as smart as all of us. And that's the value of understanding, equipping, training, and building a team. Another teamwork law is the law of Mount Everest. And this says that the challenge escalates the need for teamwork. As the challenge escalates, the need for teamwork elevates. And this law is about gathering and growing a team to accomplish something big. In other words, the question is, who are you bringing around you? Who's in your circle? Remember that we are the average of the 5 people that we surround ourselves with. So think about your inner circle. And I don't mean just business, but out in just your community, at home, in your personal lives. Who is in your inner circle? And you are the average of those 5 people that you surround yourselves with. So there are 2 questions. Who are you bringing around you? And what are you doing to develop them? Because it's more than just gathering people around you. That's good, but it's not enough. You also want to grow them. And this law basically says that if you're just going to climb a hill, you don't really need a team. Get your shorts, your hiking boots, and go at it. But if you're going to take on something larger and bigger than life, you got to have a bigger team. So there are 3 Mount Everest questions that you have to ask yourself if you're going to build a Mount Everest team. And those questions are, what is my dream? And it's a great question. What is my dream? What am I trying to accomplish and achieve? Because I can tell you this, the size of your dream determines the size of your team. Number 2 is, who's on my team? And this is an important question because people talk about their dream team, but they haven't been able to talk about who's actually on it and what they're bringing to the table. A big dream and a bad team is a nightmare. Number 3 is, what should my dream team look like? In other words, if I have this Mount Everest dream, what should my team look like? Because only when the team and the dream match up do you fulfill that dream. Now, when you start out dreaming, it's always going to be bigger than your team. It's just going to be the way that it works. But as you start to build and grow, you need to make sure that you're surrounding yourselves with the right individuals. So last on the list for today is attitude. Remember to be successful, relationships, equipping, and attitude. The letter A stands for attitude, and Hugh Downs was right when he said, a happy person is not a person with a certain set of circumstances, but rather a person with a certain set of attitudes. Psychologists have found that when people are praised for promotions, company executives look for the following things about that person. Number one is ambition. In other words, they want to see if a person has any drive. Do you really want to accomplish something? Are you going to fit in? Do you have some oomph and energy about yourself? Do you really want to go up in the company? Number two is, of course, skill. It's basic. They want to make sure that individual is competent in what they are doing. Now, what I want you to notice here is number 3, 4, and 5 after ambition and skill. Number 3 is attitude toward the company. Attitude toward the company. What's the person's attitude toward the company? Number 4 is attitude toward people. And number 5 is attitude toward excessive demands on time and energy. And when I see this, I'm reminded that leadership has less to do with position than it does with disposition. Think about when you're getting ready to hire people. 3 of the 5 main questions deal with attitude. If it's often been said this way, all things being equal, you have 2 people in front of you. You want to promote in your company. All things being equal, giftedness is equal, the knowledge is equal, the whole deal. The person you're always going to promote is the individual that has the better attitude of the 2. You don't look at the 2 people and think, oh man, he sure has a lousy attitude. I would like to have him come up and help me. I've often said attitude more than anything else in a person's life is a major disqualifier. Now, more people have been sidetracked, set back, and sabotaged simply because they just don't have the right set of attitudes more than anything else. And there's an attitude inventory in your workbooks. And when you take this inventory, I want you to be brutally honest with yourself on where you stand as it relates to attitude. Ask yourself, how are you doing in these areas? And there are 5 areas that I just spoke about that people look for when they begin to hire and when they begin to promote. What I want you to do with this inventory is increase your level of consciousness when it comes to these 5 things: ambition, skill, attitude toward company, attitude toward people, and attitude towards excessive demands on your time and energy. Because what's going to happen is, as you become more self-aware about this, you're going to raise your lid, and it's going to make you more conscious of it when dealing with others, and when you're dealing with people that you're hiring. So when you're working with individuals and when you're managing projects and the teams, think about this and look at the 2 people that you're comparing. So I would challenge you for each of these evaluations and inventories that are in this workbook, have yourself do one and then take one to your team and have them do one in an anonymous situation. Because I want you to see how you perceive yourself and how your team perceives you and get that holistic view from things. So here's what I've discovered. Number 1, our attitude is a choice. Of all the things that I can say about your attitude, the most important, your attitude, my attitude, it's simply a choice. And I cannot stress this enough. Your attitude is a choice. In other words, the attitude that I have right now, Israel Green attitude, that attitude right now is me and mine personally. I personally chose that. And the same goes for you. The attitude you have right now, you've chosen. It hasn't been given to you by your spouse, by your boss, it hasn't been given to you by your age, by where you are, where you live. The most important thing, and I'm stressing this because daily adults choose not to buy into this fact. And people oftentimes think that their attitude is dictated by how they start their day, their relationship that they're in, the job that they don't like, or the place that they live. And they're constantly blaming their attitude on everything else except for themselves. Now, the sooner these individuals understand that their happiness and their contentment are within, the sooner that they're going to excel. If you are plagued with an attitude problem and you end up ranking yourself as a 1, a 2, or a 3, you're going to find that the day you wake up and reckon with this as a choice that you control is going to be one of the greatest days of your lives. The only person that can make you happy is you. That's it. There's a story of an NFL coach's wife, and she was sitting on a press conference for his new assignment. And knowing that they moved around a lot, one of the one of the PR people asked her the question, and he says, "Hey, what's your favorite place to live?" And without missing a beat, she looked and said, "Every place I lived." As a coach's wife, I knew that I was going to live in a lot of different places, and I decided long ago that wherever I was, that would be my favorite place. Attitude and perspective. You ever encounter people that they have that destination disease and they think, well, if I can just move there, things are going to get better. If I can just get over there, things are going to be better for me. And it's a destination disease. Just if I can live there, I'll be happy. Happiness isn't out there, happiness is within yourself. Please understand your attitude is a huge choice. And that's why I never feel sorry for people with bad attitudes. When people are grumpy or angry, I need to get away from them because they will suck the life out of you. The second thing to remember is our attitude determines our approach to life. And this is just a fact. The attitude you have and that I have sets up how we approach our life and how we look at our day. Many times our attitude can turn our problems into blessings. It's our attitude that will turn difficult times into better times. And there's a story of a Canadian bird. And this bird would watch all of his little bird friends fly south for the winter. Year after year, he would fly south and watch his bird friends. And the bird, this particular year, he decided that he was tired of flying south and he wasn't going to do the trip from Canada. He thought these Canadian winters surely can't be that bad, so I'm just going to stay up here in this winter. So the Canadian bird decided when all the other birds flew south, he would stay there. And he stayed and he got to a point in mid November, and it was a cold, it was drizzly, it was wet, and this bird was freezing. And he started thinking, man, this sucks. What am I doing up here? I should be in Florida without my friends. So he took out to flying south, only to get up in the air. And because it was so cold and the wetness and the rain, it began to stick to his feathers. And all of a sudden, ice started forming on his wings. And he couldn't even flap his wings at that point. He just kind of glided down into a Canadian barnyard to die. And there, as he laid on the ground, gasping for breath, realizing he was about to die, about that time, a cow comes walking up, steps over him, over that frozen Canadian bird, and he drops a big plop right there on him. The bird was so disgusted, he thought, man, I'm already dying, and the very last thing is I get pooped on. And he was so disgusted, and all of a sudden he thought, wow, it's getting a little bit warmer in here. Okay, and the ice began to melt and it began to thaw out and the wings began to move a little bit and the bird started chirping. He's like, "Oh my, oh yes, 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 I'm gonna live, I'm gonna live." In fact, the bird was so happy that he just started singing underneath that big old plop. And about that time, the barnyard cat came by and he heard the singing underneath that plop and went over there and he removed all the stuff off that bird. And he saw the bird and he ate the bird. Now, there are three morals to that story. Number one, everybody that drops a plop on you is not your enemy. Number two, if a person takes the plop off of you, it's not necessarily that they're your friend. And number three, when somebody drops a plop on you, just keep your mouth shut. Attitude and perspective, my friends. I hope this session added value to you today, and I want to thank you for your attentiveness and thank you to Zoho for allowing me to share this material with you. It's been an honor and a privilege to be here with you. I love personal growth, and I hope that you're equally as excited about it as well, especially once you start applying some of these principles and practices with your teams. If anyone on the call has an interest on bringing any of this content that you've heard here today or over the past couple of weeks into your organization, or you would like to learn more about myself or the John Maxwell team, you can find my information down in the bottom right-hand corner of this slide. Also, if you've not already take a moment and tweet one takeaway from today's session to @Zoho CRM, hashtag sales leaders. One takeaway, because I think Kiriti has a couple of prizes to give out. So one takeaway from today's session. For everyone on the call, thank you again, and I look forward to chatting with you, and we will open it up to questions.
Thank you, Estrel, for a walkthrough on the important keys of success. So before we move on to questions, audience, I would like to let you know that we have few worksheets on how to be a real success on the handout column mentioned at the GoToWebinar panel. So request you to download and you can actually take the exercises later whenever you find time. So the worksheets are mentioned in the handout session. So please go download over there. So now we have come to the end of the webinar. So we hope you found it useful. So don't forget to post your tweets for a chance to win a surprise. So make sure you tag us at Zoho CRM and use hashtag sales leaders. Also, don't forget to join us on our last leadership webinar series, How to Be Real Success Part 2 on next Wednesday, February 28th. So any questions, please post them in the GoToWebinar panel. I think Israel would love to answer those questions.
So one of the questions that's coming in is how do you manage toxic people in the team? Guillermo, the biggest piece for that for me is to address it immediately. You cannot let it fester. Stick with the facts. Make sure that they are things that you witness and address the facts. Try to, if you can, try to do it off-site because sometimes there's a confrontational environment in the office. And by removing them out of the office, maybe taking them to lunch or coffee or just for a walk and having a candid conversation with that individual will oftentimes help you. And it could be something that that individual is dealing with at home, and they may not even know that they are toxic. So if you have not brought it to that individual's attention, it needs to be brought up, but make sure that you stick to the facts and you address it immediately when it happens. I have a small team. How can I implement these anonymously to them? You can send it out or do a copy and just have them put it in a box because I believe it's just circling numbers. So if you want to distribute it to your team and just say, hey, over the next 3 days, if you guys can fill these evaluations out for me, I would greatly appreciate it. Once you've done so, just please put them in the box and do not put your name on them. Make sure that they're not handing them directly to you. So out of curiosity, for people that are still on the call, out of relationships, equipping, attitude, which of these three are you going to focus more of your time on over the next 30 days or so? We've got attitude, wow, getting a lot of attitudes. I love that. Equipping. Also remember, as you guys are going home today, as you're meeting, take the time out to maybe meet someone that you don't know and practice the strategy of remembering their name, asking their name, associating their name with something famous and an attribute about them to see if that helps you remembering names. Trying to do that over the next week. I would love to hear your feedback, so you can feel free to email me later on throughout the week, or if you all have questions, feel free to email me as well. But I'm always, I love hearing the feedback from people that have been through the training and the workshops to see how it's helped them.
All right. It looks like everyone's questions has been answered. So we'll all see you on next Wednesday. Thank you.